It has been quite a long time, now that I think about it, since we have done Manga Wars. Yes, if you guys weren't aware, and it's kind of been a long time, Manga Wars is kind of a podcast series I kind of invented, comparing two mangas that are similar to one another, and just seeing, comparing strengths and weaknesses, arcs, best arcs, characters, and endings. Like, it was just like a neat little concept that I had kind of come up with over the past year. And at least the plan originally was, every month do a Manga Wars episode. Though, you could say 2018's kind of been that weird year for me where I haven't really been super consistent with that. And another thing that's a little inconsistent is the number of guests. It's not just me and Sparta, who, ironically, isn't actually here this time around. Instead, you've got my other special friend / special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Blue Star. I'm sure you remember me from many of Lucky Chi's previous podcasts. Let's see. This is perhaps the first podcast. Though this perhaps for you lot will be the first podcast I do alone with Lucky Chi on his channel. Granted, we attempted it one time before, but let's see, he lost the contents.
Yeah, that was a weird year. Weird month, weird week, whatever you want to call it.
It's also the only time when we're not, discussing something that was manga related, but let's see, we'll let the audience figure what that out is and themselves do their own conspiracy theories.
Yeah, right? Subvert expectations.
Arthur, don't give away the hints.
Subvert expectations, man. Subverting expectations.
Who knows? Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it again when the time comes.
Who knows? We'll figure something out. As you guys know, of course, like I said, this is a Manga Wars episode, and if you guys are new to this particular podcast, it's quite simple. Like I said, we look at two manga series that are kind of similar, not necessarily from the same author. Two different mangakas, comparing artworks, main characters, side characters, villains, endings, what have you. So that's the whole premise of the Manga Wars episode. Just a fun little neat discussion, between a couple buddies, and then just saying, hey, which of the two series actually stands out the most compared to the other? That's the whole concept that I came up with Manga Wars. And as you guys can tell by the title, these two manga series, when you think about it, are a little different, but their concepts are kind of similar. And when I thought more about it, I thought, there's no way I can pass this one up. There's no way I could pass this one up. Plus, it's the one that I announced in the previous Manga Wars episode, which, of course, is PandoraHearts versus Fullmetal Alchemist, or vice versa, depending on your take. But, yeah, that is what we're going to be tackling for this particular episode of Manga Wars. I like to start this off with a summary for both series. Right now, I'm going to be tackling the one for PandoraHearts, which will be starting up right now. Oz Vasilius, it lives a near-perfect life in the Vasilius mansion. Accompanied by his loyal servant Gilbert, Oz prepares for his long-awaited coming-of-age ceremony. However, his whole life changes when he is trapped in another world that has been given the name The Abyss. When Oz comes to find the Black Rabbit Alice working together, the pair finally escapes to the real world with his companion Gil nowhere to be found. Oz begins to panic. Then Oz discovers Pandora, which is a secret organization that consists of most of the most interesting people. What secrets does the Abyss hold, and how does Pandora tie in with it? And that's the basic summary of PandoraHearts. So now I'm going to hand it over to my buddy to give us a summary for Fullmetal Alchemist.
Oh, that's a good. Thank you for letting me do Fullmetal Alchemist, because it'd be very hard for me to do the summary for Pandora Hearts. But anyway, yes, Fullmetal Alchemist. Let's see. It's the story of two brothers, Edward Elric and his brother Alphonse. The story follows these two brothers as they go in search for the Philosopher's Stone. As when they were children, they attempted to do an alchemy ritual which would bring back their mother. Did they know that it would cause a horrid mistake, as Edward lost his leg and arms, while Alphonse lost his entire body. And they failed to bring back their mother. Now they search and quest to find the Philosopher's Stone in hopes of restoring their body, along with the help of their friends, childhood friend, Winry, and the military police group, Roy Mustang and his crew. But during the journey, they deal with countless different foes, such as the notorious serial killer Scar, who targets state alchemists due to the tragedy that happened to his people caused by them, and the homunculi, these beings made out of philosopher's stones. The boys will discover a bit of their past, who runs their country, and how they can restore their bodies. I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah.
That was great. And yeah, so really, like, when you can look at it, they're a little bit similar. And first thing we're going to dive into are the main characters. Specifically, the main protagonists. Oz Vasilius and Ed from Fullmetal Alchemist. Interesting note that I want to bring up here is that both of these two protagonists both have a father that end up leaving them. Although in Pandora Hearts, it's more like Oz's father ends up abandoning him, and they're for completely different reasons.
Well, this father particularly wishes he never existed and wish he died.
Which is kind of fucked up when you think about it. The similarity there is that the mystery behind their father. It's like, well, okay, so what is it? Real difference I can see between the two characters is, Ed is a lot more focused. He's a lot more forceful in the matter, which isn't bad by any means. Oz has that too. Oh, go on.
And a lot more short-tempered.
Yeah, that too. He's definitely more short-tempered. Oz has those traits as well, but he likes to be a little more goofy, which I think, there's a nice charm to that. Mm-hmm. That, and also, I want to say, there are times in Pandora Hearts when Oz kind of takes some dark turns. Like, vicious dark turns where you're just like, shit, like, it's like a different entity. Where that happens and the entire world flips. Mm-hmm. And everyone's just sitting there going like, well, holy shit. Like, that's crazy. But also the same thing happens with Ed. In a sense that he performs in alchemy, which in turn trying to bring back their mother, quote unquote, he ends up losing his arm, and of course Alphonse ends up losing his entire body, and he's stuck in like a metallic armor. He's kind of like a husk with a soul, which, not a neat little concept there, but the one thing I want to say, I think, is that while the journeys, they might be different for the two characters, ultimately I will say they do go through a lot of growth. And like as the story progresses, they go through significant changes. Significant changes. What about you, Blue Star? Like, what's your thoughts on the two main characters?
Well, at first glance, Eren is probably what you consider your typical shonen protagonist, where he's a bit hot-headed, a bit rash. Quite a skilled fighter and stuff. But there are some qualities that he does have that are different from protagonists from like the standard shonen series. As you know, most of them tend to be a bit idiotic, right?
Like Luffy and Naruto.
Oh yeah, but let's see. Edward is actually pretty intelligent. Let's see. So yeah,
That's true.
he's pretty good at researching like Philosopher's Stone, which is something a bit different from most protagonists, as they don't really read much books from shonen. But let's see, like that. He's quite witty. He's quite good at tactical skills and combat. Though granted, that's what all protagonists are best at, really. But he also has this sort of like serious side about, let's see, the guilt of like what's happened between his brother and him, what they've done, what they tried to do to bring back their mother, and and what happens to like the innocent people that end up dying along the way on their journey, and their vows to try and prevent that as much as possible. And also how he's evolved with his relationships with not just his brother, the members of the military that he can trust, and of course with his childhood friend and lover Winry, and even with some of his relationships with the homunculi. Let's see. So yeah, I believe he goes through the hero's journey quite well in many ways. In fact, in many ways, he's much better than most shonen protagonists in this regard. Well, I think Oz is pretty much the more comedic aspect of a shonen protagonist at first glance. He's a bit more of the funny one. He's a bit silly at times, and he kind of sometimes ruins like an emotional moment with his humor. But let's see. At the same time, I think he is.
He can be a little snarky.
I'm sorry, what?
I said he can be a little snarky too at times.
Yeah, that too. But I think at the same time, he also has this deep sadness to him, which you don't really. I mean, you do kind of see with shonen protagonists, but I don't think it's handled as well as it is with like Oz. To some extent, Naruto used to do this well a bit when it comes to Naruto's loneliness, but I feel like Oz is like not perfected and stuff. Like, particularly how his father treats him and all that stuff. How he handles like dark situations, because situations in Pandora's Hearts get surprisingly dark despite the humor of the series. But yeah, how he handles the situation, how he moves on, and all that stuff. So yeah. But if I had to pick who I think was the best, I'd probably have to start up with Edward, partly because from beginning to end, Edward could always, go into combat, could fight in the front lines or the main battles, so to say, during the entire series, because unless his arm was like just robotic, witty metal arm was destroyed, then he can do his like alchemy and stuff. While Oz, at the beginning, he couldn't really fight due to the fact that, for most part, the powers for most part belonged to Alice. So he had to be, for most part, a bystander, which I think helped in some regards when situations he felt helpless in. And when he did start getting into action, it was quite good. He ended up being quite good at it. In fact, it was like really good when he was started to fight for real and take part in battles. But I suppose, at the beginning he was a bit of a passive protagonist in some regards. But yeah, I just feel like, for the most part, Edward is the more well-rounded and structured protagonist compared to Oz.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that too.
I'm not sure if I'm using the right words, but yeah.
No. It totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, like I think with Oz, to get to your point, I feel like that was also kind of like where it needed to start off from for Pandora Hearts, is to like kind of showcase just what kind of character he is, and showcasing that he's not really super hard-headed, but I'll just kind of showcase, like, okay, so where does he stand right now, and then what's it going to take for him to, not only, because, yeah, he has the power and he has to rely on Alice, but what kind of steps does he have to take to kind of control, like, kind of use the power on his own? So it's kind of, for Oz, it's kind of like more of like a gradual thing when it comes to like his combat thing, when it comes to his combat capabilities. I mean, yeah, Ed has it too, but I feel like it's more gradual from a combat standpoint with Oz than it is with Ed. So there's like two ways you can look at it. But for the most part, I definitely agree with you. I think Ed is a little bit more well-rounded than Oz is. Which then brings us to our secondary protagonist, Alphonse and Gil. So
technically, Gil is like the third main character, but given how the second main character in Pandora's Hearts is female, we have to do as we've probably structured it. We're doing like the main female character against the main female character.
Yes. Blue Star, what's your input when it comes to the two secondary male protagonists, specifically with Alphonse and with Gil?
Well, in many ways, let's see, due to the events that trigger both series, let's see, they're the ones that have the most obvious changes to them, as in many ways they're both similar. They start out as they're probably like the shy younger brother, or in Gil's case, the shy younger servant.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the tragedies that befall them during this childhood, let's see, Al loses his body while Gil loses his master, and he must wait 10 years. So in other words, he actually ages into like a young adult by the time that Oz returns.
Right.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention like the twist with Oz, but I guess I will get to that when we get to the villains, but yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely get into that with that. But no, that's something I can actually kind of agree with you, is that yeah, like they're both similar in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Though, if you kind of want to know, like on a much more grander scale, I guess a more narrow through line through of the characters, you could say that Gil is more mature, given the fact that that it's been 10 years.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I also think Alphonse of the two Eric brothers, he is probably the most emotionally more mature one compared to, let's see, his older brother Edward, who tends to be a bit more outburst and losing his temper, particularly when anyone calls him Shorty.
Yeah, that's actually I think about it.
Yeah. I think he also managed to handle the more mature situations a bit better. Now, granted, that doesn't mean he doesn't break down a bit, particularly when what happened to that little Nina girl, which...
Yeah.
That is disturbing to see. That is disturbing.
That's in a shonen manga, folks. Let's not forget that. That's in a shonen manga.
No spoilers for those who haven't seen Fullmetal Alchemist, but blimey, you're going to be crying by the end of that.
It's on Netflix, all 64 episodes.
Yeah, watch it. They actually got 2 versions for it.
And then they're both good, although granted,
the manga and the Brotherhood's probably the better of the two.
Yeah, I mean, again, the filler for the original anime isn't bad, but if you want a more beat by beat adaptation, well, maybe not beat by beat, because I know Brotherhood cuts a few things out from the manga, but if you want a more faithful adaptation, you're gonna have to go with Brotherhood.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that later, but let's see. We're, of course, talking about 2 main characters, so...
Yeah.
I do like how, let's see, Alphonse, is a character that tries to always find a way to, like, help people. Particularly his development for when, let's see, Greed's original gang gets murdered by King Bradley and the other deaths that affect him. It just has his resolve to find new ways to make sure that, despite the laws of equivalent exchange, say an eye for an eye kind of thing, he'll find a way that makes it work for everyone, kind of have your cake and eat it.
Oh, for sure.
Let's see, he does. I mean, I think his finest moment is when he uses the Philosopher's Stone, despite being reluctant to use it when he finds out what it's made of, finds a reason to why to use it, particularly against pride and...
Lust? Was it Lust?
No, that alchemist that had a Philosopher's Stone in his mouth. What's his name again?
I know who you're talking about. Shit, I'm trying to remember his name too. Someone in the comments is probably going to be like, it's this guy.
Let's see. I particularly like how he's able to take both of them on. And I think that's his finest moment, because you see how far he has come from developing his abilities and powers. In many ways, given how originally, of the 2 brothers, he was the only one that could not alchemy abilities without the circle, with just his hands, as most alchemists need to do the seal. They need to do some form of seal in order to use their abilities. But those that have gone into and seen the truth kind of thing and conform that human alchemy can do alchemy without those seals. Granted, it comes with a cost with what they value most and stuff. I'm trying to find the villain's name. Kimberly, yeah, it's Kimberly.
There we go. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's Kimberly. Let's see. But yeah. In many ways, Alphonse, was the most mature of the two, and he did really well to progress from, finding different ways to achieve his goals and doing what the laws of alchemy foretell and stuff, and always trying to find another way out when the options were very limited and stuff.
Oh yeah, trying to find a perfect middle ground.
And he had a very good, touching moment where he kind of sacrificed himself, sort of, in the final battle, but he knew that his brother would come and rescue him and stuff. As for Gilbert, Nightingale, right? It's Nightingale, right?
Yes.
He starts out as the shy young servant to Oz. Who's always a bit nervous about, and and Oz can always kind of boss him around a bit, and he doesn't really show much of a backbone, but is still greatly cared for by Oz. But when his master's disappeared, he goes through. You see the loyalty he goes through as he ended up joining the rival family, being allowed himself to be joined by the rival family and be used as a pawn by Break in order to one day get his master Oz back and stuff. At first, he doesn't reveal who he is, but I think
it was kind of obvious. The more you looked at him, I was like, he kind of looks like Gilbert just a little bit, and then I also kind of picked up on that when Oz kind of referred to Gil a couple of times throughout the beginning chapters, and I kind of thought, well, maybe he is Gil.
And fair enough. And in many ways, due to the fact that he's much older, he is perhaps the one that has the most combat experience among the three protagonists.
Oh yeah, given how much time had passed between Oz being in the abyss.
Anyways, while Oz was just at the time passive in terms of combat in the plot, you mostly had to rely on Gilbert to see, and he was actually pretty good. In many ways, he was like a junior Kakashi or something like that, as that's the best way I could describe it.
That's one way you could put it.
Or maybe he was the Sasuke Uchiha or something, but yeah.
But I'd say a more profound version of Sasuke. If we're being honest.
Yeah, profound and a more less arrogant one. Let's see.
Yeah, that's definitely perfect.
Of course, he still had some of the same traits he had when he was a child, particularly when it comes to Oz and later Alice. But I think what really gets you invested as character is the more of the mysteries and things you learn about, Gilbert, particularly his younger brother, who was also adopted by the Nightingale family. His relationship with the member of the Nightingales that you become a bit invested with. His relationship with Elliot Nightway. You learn more about his past and where he was actually during that great tragedy that happened 100 years ago. His relationship to the characters from years ago. And there's this dark twist where it revealed that he's actually supposed to be serving this guy. But I think this is where it really shines with his friendship with Oz, as he chooses Oz over him and sacrifices a few things in order to make sure that Oz is safe along with Alice, showing that what he's done in the end is made his choices, who he wants to protect, what he wants to protect, and in many ways shown himself as truly. In many ways, he's probably the most developed of the three characters, as he becomes much more confident over time, and instead of just referring to Oz as master, he truly refers to him as just Oz as his friend and all that stuff. He goes from a master-servant relationship with Oz to that of best friends, maybe even brothers to an extent.
Oh, yeah.
So I would probably say, if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably pick Gilbert, because I feel he's a bit more developed and there's a bit more investment in him. Not to saying that that's not the case with Alphonse. I mean, he's the second main character in the series.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I feel between the two, I'd probably say Gilbert has the more development.
Mm-hmm. No, I can definitely agree with you on that, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you consider all of, like, the things that happen with him, like, throughout the course of the story. Like, including, like, say, like, the flashback stuff, when you see what happened after Oz was, like, trapped in the abyss, and then you kind of see where his life goes from that point. I think that's the other thing, too. I mean, yeah, like I said, Alphonse, nothing against his character. I think he's also a great character, but there are times in Fullmetal Alchemist that I kind of felt like he got a little bit more stuff to do, just a little bit. But overall, I would personally say that I think it's Gilbert that shines between the two secondary protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
Which now brings us over to the main female leads of the series. Alice from PandoraHearts and Wenry from Fullmetal Alchemist.
To be fair, I feel like this is a bit of a unfair mismatch between the two, given how Alice is the second main protagonist, while Winley while the main female is more of a supporting character. Where she's more of the emotional support for Edward and
Alphonse, yeah.
And Alphonse, as he's more of a tie to their past, as more like a connection more like a motivation to help. Reach their goal as something that they're striving towards, getting their normal life back together. The days when they used to be able to hang with her and stuff. That's kind of what in that point. That's partly why she's there. In many ways, it's to help the boys have something to ground them and reconnect to them with their normal world, or the world they used to have and stuff, or the life they used to have. But she's not more of just emotional support. She also helps, the protagonist, the two main characters, due to the fact that, she's also a mechanic for automail mechanic.
That's what it was, yeah. Automail
so
mechanic.
Whenever Edward gets his arm or leg broken, he can always go to Winry to sort of get it repaired. But granted, due to the fact that she's a bit of a tsundere in this regards, she always ends up hitting Edward for nearly destroying his machines and her precious work. In some ways, you think she's actually going to kill, Edward.
Right.
But due to the fact that she's a supporting role, she doesn't really have combat capabilities. Which, probably to some people, that would probably frustrate you if you want to see females kick butt. But that's fine. I mean, sometimes you need that emotional supporting character. Not every female character needs to kick butt, or male character for that matter. Let's not get to sorry, I might be going to gender stereotypes without intending to go to gender stereotypes.
Nothing wrong with that, but
yeah. However, there is this really good moment with her in the series where confronting the person who killed her parents and made her a sort of orphan that had to be raised by her grandma. And she tries to kill him, but with a little encouragement from Edward, she doesn't do it, as Edward points out, your hands are meant to heal and help people, not take them away and stuff. Wow. And this is followed through when, later during the series, when they encounter the killer again, she tends to his wounds, which confuses him a bit because, don't you hate me? And she still hates the guy, but she knows that this is not but she knows this is what her parents would have done and stuff. So even though for the most part she's emotional support, she's mostly in the role of emotionally supporting and helping Edward and Alphonse, she does have her own, her own sort of mini subplot in the story, particularly with this relationship with the notorious Scar. But yeah. So I believe in many ways, she handles her role quite well in the supporting role. But I think in the end of the day, most people would probably enjoy the more female protagonist that, for most part, gets into the fray as well. And that's partly what Alice is. Let's see, you first think she's this, like, mysterious, like, contract maker, being called the infamous bee rabbit and stuff. Oh, yeah, a chain. At first you think she's a chain and stuff, and she pretty much is what all the power that Oz has. She's pretty much Oz's source of power, and she's quite the outspoken tsundere girl in quite a sense, if that's the best way to describe her. Let's see. She's not afraid to speak her mind. Let's see, get in the part of the action, and let's see, interact with her friends and stuff. As you learn more about her past and what she does, you see her a bit develop, particularly with her relationship between Oz and Alice, and let's see, and what the friendship means to them, and what she resolves to do in the series, and I think it's quite good. I think it's particularly noteworthy when the plot twists of the series start showing up and stuff, so, yeah. I suppose, let's see, out of the two main female characters, they're both good, but I'd say, let's see, for a more active role, I think Alice probably tops Winry, despite her being quite good as, like, an emotional support character.
Oh, yeah. Well, that and also, it's also the fact that Alice is also, like, integral to the story, kind of much like how Ruby was in Opal's Hunter.
Yeah, in many ways like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
go on.
It's more of a grounded role in the story. For Winry, for Fullmetal,
yeah.
She's more of a normal, grounded area. She's not got anything to do with the major overall scheme of the bad guys, but that's fine.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Just means the other character has, like, a little bit more stuff to do than the other one did. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad characters because of that. But yeah, so by what's it called? So yeah, overall, I would say in terms of female characters, definitely Alice takes the win there.
Mm-hmm.
Which now brings us over to the side characters from both series. And not any specific characters, but just like, just like kind of like the side cast in general. And honestly, for both series, it's kind of tough because I think they're all pretty evened out. Like each of the side characters play like a huge important piece in the overall story. And I think how it's kind of executed and where they ultimately end up by the finale. I mean, case in point, if you take, like, Oz's sister, Ada, and then, of course, if you take someone like Vincent and Echo, like, you see the role that they have to play. Even characters like Elliot.
When you say Vincent's more of an antagonist, though, or...
He's kind of like a minor antagonist, if I'm being perfectly honest.
What would you say anti-hero like Scar?
Probably anti-hero. I think I'd probably say anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, when you see the roles that they play, is there any particular character from both series that didn't really commit too much to the plot?
Well, I'd probably
there might be one or two from both series that you could kind of consider that they didn't play too much of an active role, but their role was served enough. But
well, I'd probably say between like the badass, sent teacher kind of type, the Kakashi of the series, know. I'd probably say Break would probably be a bit more better than Roy. To be honest, as you learn this mysterious character, who's a bit like, I suppose also a bit like a Kisuke as well.
That too, yeah.
Who, it seems like he's pulling the strings and, at first using Oz, but you learn more how much he cares for the three main characters and stuff. And you learn a bit some more of the tragic pasts with him. And you find out that he's blind, and I think in many ways, I think he has more deeper emotions and connections to the characters than Roy does. Let's see, that's the main characters than Roy does with like the two Alphonse brothers. Not saying that Roy's not good, and he's also kind of like the main pretty badass of the good guys and stuff, as he's often the one that usually takes on the more powerful foes. And one thing I'll probably say is that his closure and ending was quite touching, really. Granted, I ended up reading the chapters quite fast, but I think if I was reading the series in a long-term time, I'd probably be very emotionally upset a bit emotionally upset given what I know what his end's going to be. Not saying Roy doesn't have a good character development, with his desire to become pure, the burden he faces for like his actions during like the last civil war against the Ishval, but it's also his own side plot of trying to figure out who murdered his friends among them.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up actually, because there's that whole side plot too with Hugh's death.
But I think Break was just a bit more. You get a bit more emotionally invested in.
So like, there's more complexities to Break than Roy had in Fullmetal Alchemist. I think that's the best way to probably explain it. Yeah.
And here's another thing I think PandoraHearts does a bit better as well, like the father-mentor figures. And despite, I'm not referring to Oz as terrible father, but I'm referring to his Uncle Oscar.
Yeah, Uncle Oscar. Yeah, their dynamic is really good, and not just with Oz, but also with Gil and Alice too, to an extent.
He's like quite a protective father when he's trying to figure out who his niece is dating.
I know, like the second Ada shows back up, and both Oz and Oscar like look to Gil, and they're just like, what happened in the 10 years that I was away? Start explaining shit right now. I'm like,
but I think what really makes Al's biological father. Granted, you kind of at first resent him for why he abandoned like his two brothers, but you understand why he did it, what the motivation was, and the sacrifices he's willing to make with his sons when he reunites with them.
Yeah,
and his like connection to like the main villains of the series.
Big connection there. That was a big connection.
And you feel a bit emotionally sad when he eventually meets his end, but I'd probably say, of the two, I'd probably put Oscar above him, partly because when you find out what Oz really is, and the connections that might have actually happened with his own, like, instead of, Oscar possibly hating and resenting him, he views Oscar like a son, and is willing to sacrifice himself to make sure he escapes and stuff. This is the defining moment of like the two father figures, and I would probably say Oscar is probably the one that you would
kind of look up to.
Yeah, and the one that you'd probably want for yourself, and the one you're probably going to be miss the most.
Oh yeah.
How both of them unfortunately meet their ends by the end of the series. Spoilers, by the way. Sorry. I probably shouldn't have said that, but hey.
PandoraHearts did end like a few years ago, so I would say it should be common knowledge, but
unfortunately, PandoraHearts isn't as well known as Fullmetal.
Yeah, that's the thing I was about to bring up. Like Pandora it's kind of underrated, kind of like how Oparts was.
I'd probably say for Fullmetal Alchemist side, I think it handles like its female characters a bit better.
Yeah,
and you got like Ming. Let's see, Alexandra. Trying to think.
You've got because you've got Ada, you've got Oz's sister in PandoraHearts, and then you also got
Don't confuse me of the two series first. I'm trying to think. But like, you also have like Riza Hawkeye, Fullmetal Alchemist, Izuma the teacher.
You've got Armstrong's sister.
Oh yeah, Alex. That's Alex is the male one. Oliver. You've got quite a lot of female characters that, even if they appear in the sort of like minor role, there's Zing as well, who kind of falls for Alphonse, even though she's a bit young for him at the moment. But hey, and then there's like the bodyguard to like, Lanfan. They're all kind of minor in the series, but they're shown to be quite good, kick-ass and stuff. Let's see, for the action roles they get, I particularly like when Larfun and Ling end up teaming up against Greed, or Gluttony. Yeah, it's Gluttony.
Yes.
I thought that fight was pretty well done, and how she ended up sacrificing her arm to escape when she was battling against King Bradley. See, Oliver is just like a very scary military general that's someone you don't want to mess with. Let's see, and how she managed to manipulate, the high brass of getting in to prepare for the final attack. Well, Izuma, if you know how we all complained about Naruto, all the female characters becoming housewives?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they were all developed more like Izuma, we probably would have been more accepting of them being housewives.
Yeah, honestly.
I'm pretty certain that, yeah, she makes, being a housewife awesome. Not saying there's anything wrong with being a housewife. And Zing, I think, has quite the interesting interactions with Alphonse, with, like, the rivalry with, Lee, of sorts. So, compared to, like, the female characters from Pandora's Hearts, I mean, Alice, yeah, is better than Winry in regards of more of an active role, but I feel like there's more, you can see more of the female characters stand out in Fullmetal Alchemist over Pandora's Hearts, because despite having, like, Oz's little sister, who's now Big Sister, and her relationship with Vincent being quite interesting, given the fact that she kind of changes him a bit, or she changes his perspective on her a bit, on her over time. Let's see, and also there's also Echo, whose relationship with Oz is quite touching, and it's quite tragic what happens to her in the end. There's probably a lot less female characters. I mean, some of the major female characters are also bad guys in the series, but
there's that too.
But in terms of, like, the supporting side for Pandora's, I feel like the ones in Fullmetal Alchemist have a bit more of an active role, if that makes sense. Let's see, and as for some of the other supporting characters, it's kind of even split, but I think I'd probably prefer Scar over Vincent in terms of anti-heroes, or anti-villains, given how, granted, they're kind of different in terms of goals and stuff, as Scar is like a serial killer seeking vengeance for what happened to his people against the alchemists, but as time goes on, he realizes what some of his actions of rage have done, particularly when he realizes he killed Winry's parents. And learning more of, like, how his people died, he's able to put aside his, like, grudge against, like, some of the state alchemists and work together to prevent many more people from dying and stuff. And end up accepting both sides of alchemy during the process, not just destruction, but also creation, in order to deal the final blow of killing King Bradley. Therefore, finally avenging his people, but not in a rage serial killer mode. While Vincent is mostly, his actions appear to be to do what he thinks is best for his brother. You also find out he's a bit more he's had a bit of a more unstable past, and how the guilt is burdened by part due to his part in causing the tragedy of Silbo that happened 100 years ago. And all the evil actions he's done is to try and do it. But when he's talked sense out of from his brother, he realizes that what he's done is wrong and tries to help his brother as best he can. So when it comes to side characters from both series, I overall call it a draw.
I would definitely say that too, yeah, because I think it's kind of like what I said earlier. Like they're both pretty evenly matched when it comes to, like, the roles that the side characters play. Like, I don't really think anybody gets left behind. Like, no one becomes like what happened in, like, Naruto or Bleach, where you see them and then they're kind of just in the background for, like, the rest of the story. It doesn't become like that.
I will say this. One thing I think Pandora is better at is killing off its characters and emotional investment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Alchemist, don't get me wrong, the characters that die at the beginning and the end of the series, their emotions will affect you in a sense, particularly ones at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel with Pandora Hearts, it manages to do quite a balance of, like, killing off quite a fair share number of characters from beginning, midway, and end of the series.
I know, which
In fact, I'm surprised at how many characters actually die in Pandora.
I know.
I've seen everyone says Attack on Titan kills off its characters, but blimey, I feel like sometimes it's a bit more amateurish compared to Pandora's Hearts.
Yeah, like it's funny because I was rereading a couple of the volumes earlier today, and the way some of these characters, unnamed characters, get killed off too. Holy shit!
Jeez, how is this series with like the kind of humor it has gets away with this? But in many ways, it works.
Right? Fun fact: it's also like PandoraHearts is also written by a female mangaka, so that should say something else too.
Oh yeah, that's something in common both manga series have. They're both written by female authors.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. And I didn't actually pick up on that when I decided. I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting.
So it makes me wonder. So it's kind of making me wonder. Does this mean that female authors, at least from mangakas, are better than the male ones?
Actually, it might be.
I'm not trying to go all social justice warrior or PC, but given that how the previous two manga wars, it's been male versus male, but we've kind of noticed how one, particularly with both of those, one series still remains great, but the other kind of goes bad as time goes on.
Yeah.
But
this one's like the first series where they're both like legitimately really good.
Oh yeah. Let's move topic before I end up going to PC.
It's okay, Blue Star.
Yeah.
But yeah, like overall, I would say in terms of side characters, I think it's like a draw. Even draw between both sides.
Granted, in some cases, I would argue that one is better than the other in the case. For example, like the more teacher figures, I'd probably say PandoraHearts is better. But for the more, female characters, I'd probably say Fullmetal Alchemist is a bit better.
Yeah.
With some of the other characters, in between, just as good or as bad as the others, like support, like Alexander or that dude with the glasses from Pandora's Hearts. But yeah, the one that's friends with Break.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that other female character that's with Break as well. The one that doesn't.
No. I was gonna say Lottie, but she's with the Baskervilles. So aside from Alice, there's Echo, there's Ada, there's Lottie. There's one more. I know who you're referring to. Oh, and Sharon.
Oh yeah, Sharon. She's quite good as well. I particularly like her interactions with Break, and with like Oz and Alice, particularly when she thinks Oz and Alice are starting to become a bit of an item. But hey. Yeah,
dude. Like the part when she's talking to Alice about like these two characters kissing and being like, I thought that'd be a little bit too much for me. He's like, what, this? Me and Oz have already kissed. I'm like, she's actually not wrong about that.
Well, technically she bit him, but hey.
Yeah.
So he got beaten up afterwards because Sharon thought she was defying a maiden's innocence or something. But yeah, overall, yeah, on one hand, I think, like I was saying, father mentor figures, I'd say PandoraHearts is better compared to
Fullmetal Alchemist.
But Fullmetal Alchemist, in terms of quantity and quality of female characters, I'd probably say it's a bit better.
Yeah.
There's a bit more variety to them.
For sure. Which brings us over to our next topic, the villains. We have, so there's technically subsections of this. There are the organization groups, and then there's the main antagonists. We're going to talk about the organizations first. So we have the homunculi, and we have the Baskervilles.
In terms of organizations, I'm going to have to go with the homunculi. Because I feel like, given the fact that they're all based on the 7 deadly sins, they particularly portray their sins quite well. Particularly like gluttony, he's a hunger maniac, who eats just about anyone and stuff. And he has this sort of like childlike naivety to it. Envy is quite good as well, showing his particularly how he particularly with his abilities to transform into anything. In fact, he causes quite a lot of the main events that happens during the series, such as, let's see, the murder of Roy's friend. I'm trying to remember his name. You know, the one that always goes on about his cute little daughter.
I remember that.
Let's see, what was his name again? Oh, yeah, I remember. It's Mace Hughes.
Yeah, we just talked about him, too. Wow, how did I miss?
Yeah.
Yeah,
see, and not to mention he's responsible for the Ishfel Civil War, with when he disguises himself as a soldier and kills an innocent child. You kind of hate him a bit more when you find out the fact that the guy who ended up getting framed for it, didn't believe in the occupation that they were doing there in the first place. But so yeah, not only have you started a war that killed many innocent lives, but you also framed a good soldier. But yeah, it's like that. But you particularly enjoy how he gets defeated, and when you discover that his biggest weakness and hubris is that due to the fact he's the son of envy, he's jealous of humans, which results in him killing himself. But see, Lust being the only female member of the group, and probably the one with the most sex appeal, which the manga kind of brings up a bit, though not in a sort of fairy tale fan surface kind of way. Just to be clear, it's not too in your face, to say the least. It's handled in a respectable manner. I mean, there's one boob joke with when Roy's asking the guy who ends up dating her because she pretended to be just a regular girl in secret. When Roy's just going so you like boobs, huh? He says, and he goes yes. It's more of a comedic effect, but yeah, she's quite ruthless in the fact, and in many ways, she's kind of the main antagonist for the first half of the series, given the fact that she appears to be the one that's calling the shots for most part, until you see Father enter the stuff. Let's see, you also have Raph, who's just this, who is also the king of the country and stuff. And he's a sort of nearly invincible badass with his wrath and stuff. See, and then you have Reed, who starts out as a villain wanting everything, becomes a bit more of an anti-hero or anti-villain by the end of the series. Particularly his sacrifice at the end, as he realized what he wanted all along. I would say that the only one that fails among the seven is Sloth, who's for most part just a giant bit of muscle, but he's a bit lazy, but that's fine. But he's also the one that gets the least amount of screen time, but as a whole, they're quite effective group when they're working as a team and stuff. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention Pride, who in appearance is the youngest, but is actually oldest and the most powerful of the homunculi. And he is quite ruthless, as he's willing to kill friend and foe if it strengthens his power and stuff. In many ways, he is the closest to their creator, Father. While for the Baskerville, I'll have to be honest, I don't really remember any of their names. I mean, it probably doesn't help that the fact that they all wear the same kind of get-up, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, the Akatsuki and the Espada did that for the series, but I feel with the Baskerville, due to the fact that they all wear these huge cloaks and stuff, and not to mention for most part of the series they're covered, it's kind of hard to tell what's kind of unique and different about them when you try and look into their personalities. Not saying that the 4 or 5 that you interact with for most part are interesting. I mean, the little girl, the one that gets killed by Break, let's see, that other female, and this other brute. But honestly, I mean, they work well as a team, but as individuals, there's nothing that stands them out like the homunculi. I mean, at least with the homunculi, when they meet their ends, it's the opposite of their sin, or something the reverse of the sin kind of thing. Lust gets defeated by a womanizer, who let's see, Gluttony gets eaten. Envy, kills himself in despair as he realizes that he is jealous of humans. Sloth dies from being overworked and for fighting too long. Wrath is defeated by a former Avenger who's learned to calm down. And Pride is defeated when he forsakes his pride when he decides to try and take over Edward's body. But yeah. Well, the Baskervilles, they're technically not really evil as you learn the twist, but
with how they're trying to go about.
Yeah, it's more like what they're trying to do and stuff, which is fine. I mean, it adds a bit of a grey level playing field between the two sides, but at the same time, they don't really do anything that stands out for me as like truly evil. I mean, granted, the little one nearly kills like Brake's BFF a bit, and she really hates Brake when she kills like
Lily. Lily's the one you're talking about right now.
Yeah, Lily. But honestly, individually they don't really stand out. It's more when they're together as a group. While the homunculi, they work quite well as a group and individual characters.
That's true. Yeah, because like when I'm thinking about it right now, because like Lily and Lottie are a little similar when it comes to like their personalities.
So yeah,
although you could say Lottie's a little bit more sadistic when it comes to dealing with threats. That's one thing I can say.
See, but yeah, out of the two, I'd probably go with the homunculi as the group.
Yeah, I'd probably go with the same thing.
As the organization.
Yeah, but I mean,
go and add your piece to it.
Huh? Oh no, I was just saying that like, but it's not to say that the Baskervilles are like a bad organization, because it's like with what they're trying to do, they're kind like they're one of the many kingdoms before like the big tragedy takes place in the series, which we do find out in PandoraHearts at a later point, but it's just something to consider, that like, because they were dubbed as like the messenger of Abyss, which is, you could say, is kind of like the main overarching villain of the series, which in most cases it kind of was. But yeah, like in terms of its members, they were interesting to say the least. I'm not going to say they were bad, but I do feel like in terms of personalities, while as characters I thought they were interesting and good, I do think they could have used just a little bit more complexity to them. Just a little bit. Like, if I had to rank both of the organizations, I would say the homunculi would be like a 9.5, and the Baskervilles, it's like a 9.3. It's like that much of a difference. It's like one's just a tad bit better than the other one, but by no means are they anything bad. It's not like both. It's not like the two organizations just want to take over the world for the sake of taking over the world. Both organizations have their agendas, and they both have their ways of going about it. That's honestly, I think, the best way I can explain it. But like I said, I think the members of the Baskervilles could have used just a little more complexity, and that's why I think the homunculi have just a little bit more of an advantage over them. So I would have to agree with you in saying that Fullmetal Alchemist, it definitely takes that spot. Which now we get to the main antagonists of the series, which one was kind of unexpected. And Blue Star knows specifically who I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Vasilius from PandoraHearts and Father from Fullmetal Alchemist.
Should we also include Glenn Baskerville, out of curiosity?
I want to say yeah, but I kind of feel like, I personally feel like it's Glenn in the beginning, when you're learning about PandoraHearts and what the story's about. You're kind of led to believe that he is the main antagonist, and there's good key points as to why that's the case.
Okay.
But to me, I feel like when you're like really piecing the story together, and you're seeing like these little hints that are being dropped about Jack, being it through foreshadow, being it through like small little clues, I think it just automatically shows you that like Jack the entire time was the main threat, the main villain of the series, as opposed to Glenn, and that's kind of why I'm saying that.
Because in many ways, in some ways, Glenn gets more of a final battle than Jack did, to be honest. But
that's true.
Yeah. Or should he just count with like the Baskervilles or?
I would say he counts more with the Baskervilles because.
Okay, then in that case, he's probably the one Baskerville member that's probably fully developed with like his towards what's happened and what lengths he will go to change that event, even going down some very dark paths.
Oh, definitely.
Sure. Yeah. Other than that, other than him, I'm pretty sure the Baskervilles are pretty generic in some regards. But go on.
What's your take, Blue Star? Like in terms of like the main antagonists of the series, like both in terms of Jack and in terms of Father from Fullmetal Alchemist.
On one hand, Father, I'd probably say was probably got the more proper final battle kind of thing with like of the two villains in the end of the series. As I think Jack kind of got reformed at the end, kind of thing. And wasn't really the one that the protagonist was fighting at the end. But let's see, Father, in many ways, he's like the perfect final big bad. He is what, in many ways, the likes of Aizen, Madara, Jurabuk, Kaguya was supposed to be in a sense.
Kaguya. It's funny that we bring her up still.
Yeah, those are the comparisons I'm making. You could also include possibly Obito as well. Let's see, but yeah. Anyways, he's the mastermind behind all of it, all of the things that have been going on in the series. Let's see. When you realize he was a homunculi created about a few hundred years ago, being connected to a slave that would be later be revealed to be Edward's, and let's see, Alphonse's father. In fact, he has the same appearance as their father. He sort of has a sort of connection to like the two Elric brothers by that regard. I mean, after all, that's partly why Pride was considering at least taking over Edward's body. But I will say he's probably not as complex as like some of the more side villains or
like in terms of character.
Yeah, in terms of character compared to the rest, as in many ways, he's just like the final big bad, the all-powerful big bad that you need everyone to take him down. Which, nothing wrong with that. I mean, Ozai from Avatar: The Last Airbender is a good example of this.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he's probably the best example you could use for anime and manga. In fact, I'd say of like all the series that I have watched, let's see, he's probably the best example of this, for at least shonen and stuff. Granted, I'm not sure if like the final bad guy for Gintama is also like this, because I have yet to fully read that yet. Given like of all the big bads, I'd say he fits that role the best at the moment. And he gets his just desserts when the series ends and he's defeated. And compared to the other final big bads, his defeat was quite credible in the way it was done. Wouldn't you agree, Lucky Chi?
I would definitely agree.
I mean, yeah, he's the most powerful being in the series, but the mangaka cleverly managed to make his weaknesses reasonable enough that the protagonists, even when they're weaker, have a chance at beating him compared to like the other ones in like Naruto and Bleach. Oh, and I guess Fairy Tail as well, even though we haven't got to Fairy Tail yet.
At some point we will.
Yeah, because after all, I'm pretty sure it's well known that Kishimoto had no idea how to defeat Madara. Was he stated that, right?
Yeah, I know. I remember he did. That was like... No, I remember that was the year before the manga ended.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So instead, let's see, the way he got rid of him was being once again another double cross with Kaguya. And now he at least created two methods which you could argue were stupid, but they still could have worked. Naruto and Sasuke's hand steals, even though they probably should not have gotten that power up. And also 10-10 with the treasured tools, but then again...
Which nothing ever came out of it when you think about it. It's like, why bring it up?
Yeah, let's see, you could have completely made people forget those. Again, I understand having 10-10 be the key to it seems a bit weird, given the fact that of all the side characters, she was the most absent, but we're not talking about Naruto, we should talk to, like, we're talking Fullmetal Alchemist and Pandora's Hearts. Sorry, I got off topic.
No, you're good.
But as you can see, why I'm making the comparisons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
that's what I have to say for father and stuff. He's like the perfect, all-powerful final boss that you need everyone to come together to defeat. But he's not as complex as you would probably say Jack Baskerville, isn't it?
No, Jack Vasilius.
Jack Vasilius. When you first introduced to Jack, you think of him as a good guy, and in many ways, as it's revealed,
and that's what the story makes you believe that he is.
Oh yeah. Let's see, the founder of Pandora's Hearts, the organization, the ones that fight the evil Baskervilles, the one who saved us from the great tragedy and destroying the world. And he's also the previous life. Let's see. Oz is the reincarnation of him. So it's like that.
I know.
Which
is kind of funny when you think back to Naruto, because I'm just sitting here kind of going like, see, this actually makes sense.
Oh yeah. Well, I hope so. Otherwise, 4Life would be complaining about it.
He'd be like reincarnation. I'm like, hey, when you look at the hints in Pandora Heart, I think it's more justified here than it is in.
Naruto it came out of nowhere, but hey.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So at first you think like, oh, cool. This is like the guy who eventually sometimes takes over Oz in order to save him or gives him a power-up boost kind of thing, which is cool.
You could kind of compare it to Kurama or, say, Hollow Ichigo.
Oh, yeah. But
you could make the comparison there.
But first, you see it in a more positive spin.
Yeah.
But as the series goes on, but the biggest obvious example is when that sort of rich dude who becomes a bit obsessed with Oz, who tries to reenact like the tragedy. I can't remember his name. Once he tries to recreate the tragedy and stuff, and gets Oz a bit pissed enough. Eventually, you have Jack step in, and you see a bit more of a crueler side to him as he finishes off like this dude for like causing this tragedy. At first, you're not a bit suspicious unless you're paying a bit of attention to that. But once
Oswald, that's what his name is.
Oswald, yeah. But once Leo is revealed to be the reincarnation of Glenn Baskerville, or the next Glenn, truthfully, and confronts Oz and stuff, at first you think like, oh my god, Leo's turned evil.
He became the new Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Why? No.
And then he gets a bit of a talk down by Oz that this is not what Elliot would want. And just when you think the two are going to make peace, suddenly Jack takes control of Oz and starts trying to kill Leo, and particularly Glenn. And this is where you start to learn from like the guys who are running Pandora that they've discovered the truth and started working with the Baskervilles that Jack is not the hero. He's actually the villain that caused the tragedy. And he did it mainly because he wanted to try and bring the Abyss and reunite with, I suppose, the person that he cares about the most, Larisse, who reveals to be Alice's daughter.
Wait, I gotta ask, how did you feel about that twist when
I
that point?
didn't see it coming. It's like, but it's brilliant. It's like one of those really good twists. I mean, I spoiled a few things for myself when I look at some of the wiki pages, as I know that some characters are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I don't know how they're going to die, but I am so glad I avoided spoilers for this twist, because in many ways, it's as close as a shocking twist that I've had since, Empire Strikes Back.
Honestly, I was gonna make that comparison. I think it's almost as good, if not. Well, no, maybe not better, but I would say it's up there with the Empire twist.
Well, I'm not sure if there's there's very few twists that you could probably say are better than Empire's.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, even Star Wars hasn't managed to do a twist just as good as it. I mean, the closest they got to that was in the video game.
Right?
It's revealed that Oz's body is not a reincarnation, but actually Jack's body, who has a cycle of becoming young and old over time due to the actions he caused when causing the tragedy. Due to the fact the Baskervilles were sort of sealed or imprisoned or killed in an extent, they were absent for the last 100 years, so he could rewrite the story to make himself look like the hero.
I know, which is
Yeah.
kind of fucked up in a lot of ways.
Luckily, one of the four houses who came quite close to one of the four houses realized this. It was too late, but he left clues and notes for future generations. And during this point, he forces Jack to do stuff he doesn't want to do, and it's also revealed that the twist that since Oz is technically inheriting Jack's body, he is not an actual human being. He is actually a chain. Oz the Black Rabbit. It's not Alice who's the Black Rabbit. It's actually him.
Right.
It's supposed to be like her protector stuff. And this is like the darkest kind of twist you've ever seen with like a protagonist. Instead of being the reincarnation of a like hero and stuff, who gets this sort of like hidden power of Kurama, or like the Kurama, the Saiyan, the Hollow and stuff.
Yeah.
As inside of him, he is actually supposed to be the Kurama.
Which, I have to state this one more time. This is a shonen series. To see what's being done, ultimately how that ends up coming about. Like, again, when you're comparing it to Kurama, comparing it to the Hollow, to the monkey form from Dragon Ball, I will say this is probably the best rendition that we've seen.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about you, BlueStar, but that's just me.
Oh, yeah. It's like, and now you worried for Oz as he has gone in complete despair, as he's at this point also apparently being betrayed by his friend Gil, who must follow commands of his true master, Glenn Baskerville. And he gets despair because he now thinks that he is the major threat and stuff, given the fact that at any moment of time he can be possessed by Jack. So now he's become a danger. He is not the hero. Now he's the villain or the monster and this stuff. If it wasn't for like the encouragement of his friends and stuff, he probably would have been taken over by Jack completely. And then for the rest of the series, there's a sort of struggle between keeping his body and then preventing Jack from taking over. Until eventually he makes a deal for Jack and makes him realize that he was wrong and stuff, where he tries to atone for his kind of like sins at the end. But the lengths he went to try and get what he wanted, particularly reunite with Lassie, caused such great catastrophe that it entertained like the previous like Glenn Baskerville before him, that sort of like encouraged Ritzy, who sort of set up the path down for like Jack to go down. And anyways, it's also kind of reversed between the Hashiyama and Madara kind of friendship thing as well.
It really is.
I know I keep bringing up Naruto, but you gotta try and do a footnote somewhere, or an example. You gotta set up an example somewhere. I mean, it's why most people use Star Wars with the hero's journey.
It's true.
That's the perfect blueprint. Let's see. Well, Naruto's not really the blueprint of like modern manga. That's more Dragon Ball, but it's a close second.
Mm-hmm.
Even though eventually both you and I, don't really say nice things about Naruto as much these days, but yeah. So in terms of villains, I'd say if it probably wasn't for this twist, and it ended up being like, oh yeah, Glenn Baskerville's the main villain, I'd probably say Father is the better one. But due to the twist, and Jack is the villain, I'd say he is probably the better of the two.
Yeah.
There's a bit more complexity to him, as he's able to fool not just everyone for the last 100 years, not only about him causing a tragedy and then framing his like the people who are supposed to that protected the world from the tragedy.
But the fact that he actually caused it.
Oh yeah, and also the lengths he would go to achieve his goals. That, like I said earlier, that the previous Baskerville found him very entertaining. He's like, I could listen to him for like eons or something, or like I never get tired of listening to him.
Yeah, right.
But to be fair, that's probably the same for us when you're listening to this guy. I'm not sure if you could say the ending he got was fitting for him, or if you think he deserved a bit more harsher punishment for what he does. But I will say, it's a fun ride whenever Jack enters the field.
Definitely.
As we can see, Oz has to struggle with Jack as if he doesn't prevent if he doesn't stop Jack from taking control of the body, he will hurt those he cares about. Particularly Gil, Alice, and Oscar at one point.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's a twist on the whole secret power. But see, at first you think he's like a nice Kurama, but he's actually a bad Kurama.
Right.
But anyway, you want anything to add on to that? Or is it
actually, it's funny because you actually took a lot of what I was going to say. But I will add on that when it comes to kind of like the resolutionist character God, funny that you brought Star Wars up into the mix when it came to the twist. If you want to look at it from that perspective, I guess you can say for Jack, it's kind of like you could kind of parallel that with Vader.
Oh yeah.
And kind of how Vader's resolution ended up being, because yeah, technically Jack is already dead. Sure, yeah, he's able to find like a moment of peace, which is kind of like 50-50 depending on the person that you are in terms of viewing Jack. But I think Jack is kind of like the perfect incarnation in showcasing how an antagonist probably should be redeemed by the end of the story.
Oh, yeah.
If you kind of want to go by that approach.
Yeah, he's tragic in a sense, but let's see the lengths he goes. Let's see show that he makes him a monster.
Here's another comparison. Okay, comparing Jack to Obito.
Oh yeah, I'd say the twist was handled much better with Pandora's Hearts. I'm going to have to say.
Yeah, for sure.
I particularly even think the relationships, let's see Jack's relationship to Alice compared to Obito's with Rin, as it was more subtly hinted and more and slightly developed over, let's see, Obito's and Rin's, because, you know, Jack had some kind of connection and relation to Alice, right?
Yes.
But then it's revealed that it's actually Alice's mother, Lassie, who is the current, let's see, is Glenn Baskerville's sister, who he had to kill and stuff. But let's see, Lassie ends up giving Jack a purpose to live for. Well, they tried to do that with Obito, but the problem is the only thing we got, execution is. The only thing we got of Obito originally was just the Kakashi guidance stuff.
That was it.
All the stuff we learn about Obito is after the mask scene. Now, I understand why they did this. It's just like keep the twist as good as possible. After all, I think for a long time people actually believed that the masked man was actually Madara. Heck, I believed it was Madara.
I did too at one point. No, but it's funny how I know we're kind of like going off topic for a bit, but it's okay. The thing is, when it came to that, I remember asking myself, well, okay, if he's Madara, we know what he looks like, so why is he still wearing the mask? Like, did something happen in the battle with Hashirama that really messed with his face, or is he just flat out lying?
Oh, yeah.
Which is something I always kind of thought, I'm like, he could just be lying still.
But let's see, when you find a bit more that his motivations of trying to do, let's see, down the dark path for Rin, on one hand, I'm not against it, but the way they did it kind of made him a bit totally unjustified in the way he would do it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, particularly, like, they tried to do it when it revealed, oh, wait, Rin was the Free Tails and stuff, and if she didn't die, she would have turned into the monster and destroy the village, so her sacrifice ended up being heroic. But then it's like, Obito's betraying the very memory of Rin because he's trying to destroy the Leaf Village, despite the fact that Rin just tried to die saving it, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we didn't find that out until like 3 volumes after that. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think if we had found that out during the initial flashback, I think it could have worked.
And I think another thing that could have made it work better is if perhaps, instead of it being a bit more heroic, it's a bit more tragic.
Mm-hmm.
As the Leaf Village is not completely innocent in this, because, you know, what Obito goes by gives Kakashi the motivation that those who break the rules are scum, but those who betray their comrades are even worse scum. If you had sort of like the Leaf sort of like abandon Rin or betray her, you could have had like Obito viewing as like the entire village as worse than scum. So it's like a dark twist in his words and stuff, if that makes sense.
For sure.
But anyway, we should probably go back to Pandora's Hearts.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to go.
let's see. We already did a video on Naruto about this stuff, unless we want to do another podcast about it.
Maybe in the 10-year anniversary, if we
have to talk about a particular topic that involves Obito.
Yeah, there's that. But no, I was just bringing up bringing up an example in terms of how Jack was better handled, because in terms of motivation, like you do get like a solidified reasoning as to why Jack's doing the things that he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not really out of petty per se.
There's a sympathy to it, even if it's completely crazy.
For sure.
But yeah.
And like, honestly, I'd have to agree with you. I think out of the two main antagonists, Jack is probably the best one. Hell, I would even argue Jack is probably one of the best main antagonists in shonen history.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think he's in par with some of the ones from One Piece and Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah. He could definitely rival Toguro and...
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, Father is also up there with those villains, but let's see.
He doesn't have as much complexity to him as, like, the other villains do.
Let's see, he's more of there towards the end of the series, really.
That's the other thing. Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, if it was like Glenn Baskerville, if it was like the original setting, and it was just Glenn as the big bad, then yeah, you could probably say Father is better.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. But given the twist, this one goes to PandoraHearts
for sure. Which now brings us over to our next topic. Usually for Manga Wars, we do best arc and worst arc. Fullmetal Alchemist and PandoraHearts is kind of tricky, though, when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not necessarily divided by arcs, because it's really just telling, like, one big coherent story. So,
I mean, there are some few one-shot stories towards the beginning and stuff, but it's, for the most part, just the long plot stuff.
Yeah. So, instead, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the best moment and the worst moment from both series.
Okay. So are you going first or am I going first?
I'll let you go first. Get
Okay.
your standpoint on the matter.
Well, I think the best moment for Fullmetal Alchemist would probably be its final battle. As you know, they're invading the capital. All the groups coming together, preparing for against the big bads and stuff, taking on the remaining homunculi. The stakes are raised. If they do not stop them, everyone in the country will die. You get some tragic ends, both on the good guys and bad guys' side. Everyone comes together, everyone gets their particular role, and you get an ending that really satisfies you. In many ways, it's like, this is what a final battle should be. Different parts of battles going on, different individual fights, that kind of thing. And then leading down to a final battle against the main big bad, who's a godlike being.
As for me, in terms of Fullmetal Alchemist, there's a lot I can name, but the one for me that really sticks out the most is with, I believe it was Envy, Like, Roy's there, Riza's there, Ed's there too. It's like when the revelation comes that Hugh's death.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when you're seeing what Roy is going to do, like, I remember being on the edge of my seat going, like, holy shit. Like,
oh, yeah.
How is it going to go down?
I argue that's probably the best animated sequence in the entire series. He got absolutely roasted by Roy, but go on.
He did. If I had to add a couple other stuff, too, like, I will definitely agree with you on the final fight. Like, that's also really good, too. Because, again, you're seeing casualties from both sides of the spectrum. You might remember this too, but there was like this little moment between Wenry and Ed, like shortly after Alphonse and Ed like got into a fight. Like that was a really touching moment too. That I remember.
But yeah.
In the series.
Yeah, I have to admit, let's see. Oh yeah, and one thing about the Roy roasting Envy, it actually made you feel kind of sorry for Envy.
I know.
you're all probably going to hate Envy for the awful things he's done, but blimey. It makes you wonder, could you actually go through with doing this kind of punishment on him?
Mm-hmm.
Even if he's a douchebag? It's like, you know how everyone says that they would probably shoot Hitler or kill him in order to teach him for what he's done, but could you actually do such hard things against even a scummy person?
That's a fair point.
Or perhaps a more lesser controversial take is like, you have a mass murderer, he's scum, he's awful, you want him to go, but could you actually go through with doing it yourself? Like, could you actually like kill him, or would you like do it? But would you actually manage to do it in an awful way? Would you burn him?
Yeah, like it's kind of like a representation as to like what makes you, and like how does that make you better? If anything, it just shows you that you're just like them.
Oh yeah, and then like Envy's own like he finally kills himself. It's like blimey. You never feel such sympathy for a bad guy who is a piece of
shit.
I was trying to avoid saying the S word, but hey.
It's okay. But yeah, those are like some of my favorite moments from Fullmetal Alchemist.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm referring as the final battle as the entire last arc as a whole and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In terms of PandoraHearts, outside the twist, which is really good, that's a damn good twist, and you could say it's like it could be one of your favorite moments in PandoraHearts.
Uh-huh.
The other one I could think of is like the first time Jack showed up.
Okay. For me, do you want to go into detail on that, or?
Well, the first time Jack showed up, and then there was what was it like, and also like when Alice like was first getting like the little fragments of her memory, like for the very first time, and then when you get into meeting the attention of the Abyss, like I remember like reading that particular portion, and not gonna lie, it was kind of creepy the first time. Like when I was reading, I'm like, there are some definite chills that are coming down, especially when you find out when with Alice and like her being killed.
Oh yeah, but let's see. For me, I think the best bits of the series, and I think what really made the series start looking really good, is when Oz is trying to get his inauguration at that party in order to infiltrate it.
Yeah.
At first, it just seems like a normal event, but then you realize that the guy's a bit of a psycho, and he wants to recreate the tragedy that happened 100 years ago. So, and that's when the series takes a dark turn with all these mass slaughters and stuff. Yeah. And you see, like, particularly members of the LuckyRave family being killed that are not related to, like, who are all blood related, except for, like, Gilbert
like a few members, yeah.
Vincent, like the main family members. Elliot's sister is brutally cut off the head, and it's like, what? And then the shocking twist that Elliot is actually the one that's been cutting the heads off of his family, the Humpty Dumpty. And this is where, like, major characters in the series start dying, as at the end of it, Elliot dies, and it has a huge impact on everyone, including Leo, who ends up being revealed as a Baskerville. So yeah, I'd say this is the turning point for the series, and that's probably my favorite part.
Makes sense.
The Humpty Dumpty stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's actually one of my favorite moments too. But like I said, there's a lot from PandoraHearts as well that you can consider favorite moments.
Now, which one would I say was better? Ooh, I'd probably go with.
I'd say they're both even. I'd probably say they're a little even in terms of like.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably call them both even. Fair enough. Yeah. As for least favorite, well, I'd probably have between Pandora and Fullmetal Alchemist. Well, I can't really tell a least favorite moment for me for Fullmetal Alchemist. I guess you could argue that the beginning is a bit kind of slow, and it has a few one-shot stories that don't really, for most part, matter in the overall storyline, except introducing the main casts for a bit.
Oh, there was one part. I'm trying to remember what it was.
That's about.
I'd say the only part I mean, not to say it was bad. I like Hughes as a character. Was his death effective? Yes, to a degree.
You feel like it wasn't as emotional as it should be, and it's more of a setup, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, I get the purpose of the death, and it's good, but I feel like had we had gotten more time with Hughes, and then the death happens, I think it could have easily been up there as one of the best stuff for Fullmetal Alchemist. But that's the only thing I can think of right now from that.
For me, I'd definitely say the beginnings are both the weakest parts of each series. Granted, for Fullmetal Alchemist, it was. I'd say it was more. It's still a better, more setup than Pandora's Hearts, because Pandora's Hearts' beginning was a little confusing, partly because it was doing all these mysteries and stuff. But I feel like Fullmetal Alchemist was a bit more easier to follow compared to Pandora's Hearts, so I'd give that one to Fullmetal Alchemist.
In terms of least favorite?
Yeah, it has the better least favorite moment, but yeah.
In terms of the best moments, like I said, they're both pretty even for me.
Oh, yeah. But in least favorite, I think Pandora's a bit confusing, partly because I think due to the time skip, I guess, what the antagonist's motivations are, and I suppose just the lack of knowledge you get, I guess, in a sense. Well, I think Fullmetal Alchemist did a better, more build-up between what would go on later during the series. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I explained my reasons why well enough, but yeah.
I think it works.
I mean, I haven't really gone into detail of both beginnings, to be honest. I mean, I suppose with Pandora's Hearts, I feel like it takes a bit longer to find its ground. Compared to Fullmetal Alchemist, but yeah. Yeah, here we go. Anyway, so what's next?
Yeah, no, but the other point I'd want to add on is that, because I know in the beginning, because it was like that for me too the first time I read Pandora Hearts, but I think it's because the beginning is a lot more complex than it is for Fullmetal Alchemist. And I think that's the other thing too that I can kind of bring up for that. Okay. That's the only thing I'll add on when it comes to that.
Uh-huh.
So now we talk about the ending of both series, and I'll say this: they're both really good.
Oh yeah,
it's really tough for me to decide between both of them.
Let's see. On one hand, Fullmetal Alchemist, the main characters get their bodies back. Well, okay, Edward. Let's see. Granted, some of it comes at a cost. Let's see. Edward has to give up his alchemy, but he realized that this is the best way to do it, as he's only human, and he beats truth in that regards. He gets his brother back. They reunite with Rinri. And later Edward starts a family with her, and some of the other protagonists also develop and progress into their further careers and stuff. Well, at least they're doing all right. During the family photo with Edward and his children, along with their brother Alphonse and a few other people that came along, because that jumper girl and that teacher when she went to that Automero area, she was also there, so who knows? For all we know, she might have entered a relationship with Alphonse now that they're both older.
Who knows?
But let's see.
It's kind of left a little vague when it comes to that particular sense.
Let's see. Ling becomes emperor of his people. Let's see. You can see that. Let's see. Roy and along with his lieutenant have progressed further into their careers. But granted, from what we've heard, they have not become a couple due to the fact that there are some conflicting issues between a superior officer and a co-worker. A conflict of interests kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or as South Park likes to make fun of it, with PC Principal and Strong Woman. But yeah, and let's see. Obviously, everyone for the most part gets a happy ending.
For the most part.
Yeah. Granted, let's see. Eric and Edward's father dies at last, but let's see. But he ends up joining his wife and stuff, and his grave is right next to hers. While it's a bit more bittersweet for Pandora's Hearts, as they've saved the world. Alice and Oz disappear for 100 years, so Gilbert and Vincent have to wait and stuff. Everyone gets on with their lives.
Sharon ends up marrying.
The glasses dude. I'm trying to remember his name.
Riam, I think is his name.
Oh yeah, Riam. Due to how close they both were with Drake, now that he's passed away. One of the dudes who was in charge of the 4 houses, who was also kind of leading Pandora, who at first you thought betrayed the group, but then ends up was actually helping them. And the reason he wanted to, and the reason why he was doing this, because he wants to marry one of the other heads of the houses. And it's kind of funny and stuff, but
it is, honestly.
He never does it in the end, but he seems to be content with it, but yeah. Well, Oz's sister, doesn't continue the relationship with Vincent due to the fact he decides that it'd probably be best for her to find someone normal, does end up finding something normal. But given the but as we know, given the fact that we're waiting 100 years for Gilbert to reunite with Oz and Alice, most of the characters eventually have passed away by the time that to the end. It's just like Gilbert and Vincent left. But eventually,
and even for Vincent, because even by that point, Vincent ends up passing away too.
Oh yeah, so it's kind of a sad thing. But luckily for Gilbert, he finally reunites with his 2 friends, and they continue probably living the rest of their lives together from that point. On one hand, you don't see a final, that older, they've got families now kind of ending, but you got the best reuniting ending you can get in the series. They're both perfect in their own way, in a sense.
Honestly, and I know we've brought Naruto up into this Manga Wars episode quite a few times, but if you wanted a substantial Team 7 ending, I think Pandora Hearts did a fantastic job at that.
Fair enough. Well, I'd say you could also have Naruto go the Fullmetal Alchemist ending and seeing everyone grow old and have the families and stuff.
True.
This was done much better than what they did with Naruto's ending.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It really depends on your preference on what ending.
Yeah, they're both legitimately good endings. And
for my preference, I'd probably prefer Fullmetal Alchemist because you see the protagonists grow up, and you also see them starting families. And you see they've lived a full life after their journeys. Well, don't get me wrong, it's very nice that, the same kind of happens with Pandora's Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the side characters, but with the main characters, it's more of a reuniting thing, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
In many ways, it's kind of you wish 699 and 700 were both of these endings. But
right.
They weren't. After all, I think both you and me agree that 699 was the final nail in Sakura's characterization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure most people would say that her character has been dead for a long time, but this is the final confirmation.
Yeah. I think the other thing I could say about Pandora Hearts in terms of its ending is it's kind of symbolic in a lot of ways because it ends kind of where the story begins too.
Oh, yeah. Comes full circle.
Yeah, so if you're looking for an ending like that where it kind of comes full circle, I would say it's Pandora Hearts. But if you're looking for something much more than that, then you've got Fullmetal Alchemist. So I'd say it's a draw between both of them.
Fair enough. I suppose it is technically a draw, though granted my preference is more Fullmetal Alchemist. I guess it also kind of reminds me of Harry Potter's ending as well, by the way. Fullmetal Alchemist, it reminds me of Fullmetal Alchemist, it reminds me of Harry Potter's ending.
Actually, that's a fair point. Kind of does feel like that. Although you don't necessarily get remember. Because there's a few characters that are kind of left out, and
you have to learn about what happened to all those characters on Pottermore, really.
Yeah.
Or the occasional now recent J.K. Rowling tweets, but depending if You know, the ones where she's not bashing politicians she does not like. But I'm not going to get political here.
Nope. But yeah, so in terms of endings, I would say, yeah, like it's an even draw between Pandora and Fullmetal.
Uh-huh.
And now we get to the authors. In terms of writing, that's really tough. Because
I'd probably say Himori Akayara is probably more better at story structure than perhaps, let's see,
Mochizuki.
yeah, given the fact that it's more easier to follow Fullmetal Alchemist.
True.
While Pandora's Hearts is a bit more confusing at first.
It's definitely more complex than Fullmetal is. I can definitely say that.
Let's see.
Like the complexity aspect in Mochizuki's writing can be a little confusing at times. That's one thing I can say.
And she doesn't make it quite clear how to follow it in times, but let's see. But I will say that she probably has done the better twists.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She's probably handled the dark writing much better than
Fullmetal
mangas. Heck, I'd probably argue she's probably better in Attack on Titan in some regards.
I know, Isayama.
And this is a guy who has people get eaten by giant ritzy zombies of sorts.
Yeah, like honestly, I think in terms of deaths, like June does. It's not the fact that the characters die; it's the fact that of how emotional those deaths can be too. Is the other thing. Like I said, Fullmetal handles mature themes too. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't, but I think Pandora Hearts kind of does it a little bit more realistic in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say if you look at it like that, you could probably go for June in terms of the best writing.
No, granted, I would probably say that Fullmetal Alchemist has a more better story structure.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the beginning, I would say so. Because after a while, they're both pretty even. Once you get through the middle of the story.
I mean, it's probably how Fullmetal Alchemist's anime got not only one but two to actually properly end it and stuff. While Pandora Hearts only got one season, and then that was it.
Yeah, which I haven't actually seen the anime myself, so I'm gonna have to check that out and see exactly.
From what I've learned in some of the YouTube comments, they said the anime didn't justify the portrayal of the series. But hey,
oh, really? Huh.
I don't know. You have to check it out yourself. I can't really comment.
Huh, that's interesting, actually. Okay. So, yeah, in terms of, writing, you can look at it from 2 points of view. It's well, if you want more, a more realistic, a more progressive, more mature stance on the characters, you could probably go for June. But if you wanted a better story structure from start to finish, that's not as complex as Pandora, then I would probably say go with oh my god, I'm blanking on her name right now. The Fullmetal Alchemist mangaka.
Hold on, let me just go up a bit and check. It's Himori Akiyama.
Yes, her. So there's 2 ways you can go about it. In terms of artwork, damn, that's really tough.
I'd probably say it's a draw.
Yeah, artwork I would definitely say is the draw. In terms of authors, that's kind of the best thing I can say about it. Which now brings me to.
Granted, I would probably say Double Pages probably goes to June more.
June, yeah, definitely.
Particularly when she's drawing those big giant chains and with the creativity of those. Well, I'd probably say Fullmetal Alchemist is probably better at drawing its human characters. I think there's a bit more distinct differences with all the characters and stuff.
Yeah, because some of the characters in Pandora Hearts, they can look alike at times.
Oh.
So
I think a bit more creativity, and I think there's a bit more creativity in the military uniforms than in Fullmetal Alchemist than in Pandora's Hearts. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it as far as the author stuff go. Which brings me to a very interesting question. Actually, there's two questions I'm going to ask, and this always happens with Manga Wars. If you guys are new, I'll come up with a couple scenario questions, and then see what people have to say. So the first question I'm going to ask is, who would win in a fight between Edward and Oz?
I think Oz would win because, well, at first it'd probably be. I think, let's see, if it was like at the beginning, I think Edward would win. But but towards the end, Oz gets incredibly powerful as he realizes that he is a chain, the powerful bee rabbit. Heck, in many ways, you could say he has like a Kurama form.
Kind of does.
Yeah. So I know I should probably go more into their stats and stuff. I mean, I think you could argue Edward is the more skilled between the two. So I think if it was a more upfront personal fight, you'd probably have the advantage. But I think, given the powers that Oz has, he
could like overwhelm what Edward could do. But no, but I would say this. I think Ed wouldn't go down like he would go down trying. He would try to put in like his best efforts, but ultimately Oz would have the victory over that.
Mm-hmm.
And the final question is, which series would you want to be a part of if the events are taking place? In terms of Fullmetal Alchemist and in terms of PandoraHearts.
Probably Fullmetal Alchemist, probably because it's the more safe of the two, despite the fact both of them have massive tragedies there.
I know. It's like you attend one of the parties at PandoraHearts and you're just like, well, okay, if I'm here, I probably might die.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's like a big raid going on outside the city in Fullmetal Alchemist and you end up getting caught in the midst of everything, so...
Plus, I feel like, you get a bit more... it's a bit more... it feels like more like everyone can use, alchemy to an extent. I'm not sure if there's, limitations on if it's, just certain people are only allowed to do it or not. I can't recall. But I feel like, alchemy, you have a bit more variety to it, while with chains, it's mostly the main families that have all the best stuff.
Yeah, it's not exclusive to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of becomes like that situation. But I think in terms of being safe, I would probably go with Fullmetal Alchemist. But if you want to be somewhere where things get crazy and you don't know how things are going to go, I'll probably go PandoraHearts on that case too. But honestly, outside of that, I think that's pretty much it. Unless we've got anything else we need to talk about with both series.
I think that's it. Unless you want to say villain versus villain. I'd probably go with Father because I think he's more godlike, and it took so many people to take him down.
That's fair.
But yeah.
Now, in terms of what the next Manga Wars episode is going to be, and this actually does happen too, where after each Manga Wars episode, I announce what the next one is going to be, which is actually going to be kind of interesting because it's going to be a little different from what the previous two, including this one, has been. So, the next Manga Wars episode is going to be A Silent Voice versus Orange. 2 Slice of Life series.
Okay, so there's no shonen aspects in it.
At least not for the next one. Maybe for the next few after that. That could be, but who knows? You just gotta find out and see what it's gonna be. Blue Star, it was really great having you on board, especially for the first time when it's just you and me doing the discussions.
I have to admit, it's very interesting that we managed to review a series that will have both female authors and both the same amount of number of chapters.
That's actually true. Now that you mention it, yeah, because, again, the female authors things is something I didn't really pick up on, but the fact that they've got the same number of chapters actually that's intriguing.
Uh-huh.
And they're both monthly.
So, oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's good to be here, and I look forward to the next podcast that we're doing, be it the Manga Wars or probably the next My Hero Academia one we do.
which I think will probably happen soon. But aside from that, guys, that's pretty much it. I'm LuckyRave,
I'm BlueStarSaber.
and we will catch you guys next year. Peace.